Is
So
it showtime?
it is showtime. So let's get started. Let me just take a minute to welcome everyone who's watching. We are thrilled that you would make time for this discussion tonight, and I'm thrilled and excited. I'll give you a more formal introduction in a minute, but Ina is an amazing, successful entrepreneur, public speaker, and has become a prominent Rotary spokesperson among polio survivors because she is so passionate and articulate. And so we're excited to have her here with us tonight to tell us some of her experience and her story. But I'm sure you're going to be inspired by that. Linda Sappington is here. She, of course, is our district governor. She's going to speak to us in a minute. But to kick us off tonight, past president of the Utah Rotary E-Club, Joyce Scott, is going to speak to us and share the Rotary four-way test. Go ahead, Joyce.
Okay, thank you, Devin. The four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Number one, is it the truth? Number two, is it fair to all concerned? Number three, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Number four, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And number five, is it fun?
Yes. I like that. That's a great addition.
Standard. Great standard. Well, you know, for those of you who are new to Rotary or guests, I wanted to ask our district governor, Linda Sappington. I did ask our district governor, Linda Sappington, to tell us a little bit about Rotary. Governor, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Devin. Well, we've all heard this question, what's Rotary? For 115 years, people have been asking that question, and sooner or later, we're going to be able to reach a time when nobody asks that question any longer. I'm getting some feedback, Devin. Is that
I'm sorry, let me turn off my microphone and see if that helped.
Okay, thank you. Well, here is my attempt to provide an answer to the question of what's Rotary. In the simpler terms, I think Rotary is service, friends, family, and fun. We're actually called people of action, offering opportunities for our members and others interested in making a difference in neighborhoods all around the world. Through regular meetings in the morning before work, during the lunch hour, or in the evening with club members around the dinner table, during social events and volunteer projects, we work together to create bigger, better, bolder service, which changes lives. We partner with local, national, and global experts to exchange ideas and draw up action plans to address some of our community's most pressing issues. We have been the boots on the ground in the effort to eradicate polio from the earth, finally and forever, for more than 35 years. We're not there yet, but we're this close to a time when no child anywhere in the world will be crippled for life, and no parent will ever again face the indescribable pain of burying a son or daughter because of this now totally preventable virus. Rotary clubs in more than 35,000 communities worldwide are part of the solution to many of the world's problems. And we are proud to belong to the global network of Rotary International, although they haven't figured out yet my Rotary working. So, okay. We are community and business leaders who give of our time, talents, and income to help where help is needed. But most importantly, we're friends. We are more than 1.2 million strong, and you're invited to join us if you aren't already a member. Please contact a Rotary Club in your community or go online to www.rotary.org. More information about this amazing organization. And thank you all for joining us tonight. Devin, back to you.
Thank you very, very much, Governor. We're thrilled that you would take the time to be with us tonight for this special event. I'm now excited to introduce Ina. Ina and I had the opportunity to meet nearly 2 years ago when I attended the World Polio Day, at which she was a speaker. She was part of the presentation for World Polio Day in 2018 in October. And it was in that context I got to meet her as a celebrity polio survivor. And she is an amazing human being, an amazing entrepreneur, an amazing public speaker. We're thrilled to have her. And she has given me a great video to use to introduce her. Now, I apologize in advance. I came straight from a campaign event this evening, so I'm in my car. So I'm a little bit stretched, but I'm going to try and share this video. So hang on while I pull this up, okay?
Hi, good morning, everybody. How are you today? Nice to have you here.
I realized that it wasn't about the first day of opening the restaurant, which everybody thinks is the most important day, but it's the last day. And did you do it well? Did you do it with integrity? Did you feed people honestly and with care? Did you take care of your employees? Did you leave a mark in a way that matters?
Nothing could be sweeter than the blizzard when you leave her in the morning.
And I am very proud to say I think I hit my marks everywhere.
Wine's right out the door. We whisper low to Shauna. Need a table now for four.
I'm ready, I sort of feel like I was born ready, and when I lock the door at the end of the day, I want to say I did it better than anybody.
With that, Ina, let me turn the time over to you. We're thrilled to have you.
Okay, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. You ready to roll, Devin?
We're ready. You take it away.
Excellent. I'm delighted. On Labor Day 1944, my father came in to take me out of my crib. And when I tried to stand up, I fell down. And I tried again, and I fell down. I was 18 months old, and when my dad touched my forehead and realized that I had a big fever, in that moment, he understood that the polio epidemic that was sweeping New York City had come to Brooklyn, New York. We had our family doctor live in the building and had an office there as well. And my dad wrapped me up and took me around the corner to Dr. Suna's office, held me tight across his belly while Dr. Suna did a spinal, and had a laboratory there. And he came back and said to my father, "We have polio here." And my father took me to a hospital. And when he saw all the children there and asked the nurses, "How often do the parents come?" And they said, "Well, we let them in for about an hour at a time every other day." My father took me home. And they cared for me at home until the fever subsided and waited to see how much damage was done. They took me to the March of Dimes, who put me in braces. And my life was very different from that moment on. It was a difficult childhood for sure. And when my foot started to drop, the March of Dimes switched the braces to a cast. And it was at that time that my father read that Sister Elizabeth Kenny was in New York City. She was an Australian nurse, given the title of sister from being an army nurse. And my father had read that she had treated outbreaks of polio back in Australia and tried to reach her. He called every single hotel in New York City to see if he could find her. And when he did, he spoke to her assistant, who said, "Oh yeah, sister would be delighted to see your daughter. What hospital is she in?" And my dad said, "No, I wouldn't leave her in a hospital. She's at home." And the secretary said, "I'm so sorry, Mr. Brody, but we can't do this. The doctors in New York are giving sister rather a hard time. And so we can't see a child in a hospital that's not in a hospital." And my father was pretty crestfallen. The next day, he called again. And because he was a persuasive kind of guy, he got her to say yes. He borrowed a car, drove to Manhattan, picked up Sister Kenny, a large woman wearing a very big hat who was sitting in the front, and her secretary in the back. And they drove to our apartment building in Brooklyn. And when they got to the curb, sister said, "The child's doctor is here, yes?" And my father said, "No." And she said, "I will not leave the car until the doctor is present." And he ran around the corner again and got Dr. Suna, who escorted Sister Kenny into our little apartment in Brooklyn. And when she saw the cast on my foot, my father said she took a scissor and she cut it off and she hurled it across the kitchen and said, "We are not treating a broken leg here, we are treating polio." And then started the hot pack treatments. Long pieces of strips of pure wool put into boiling water, wrung out, wrapped around my leg, and then dry wool strips around that, and then no plastic in those days, so an oilcloth, tablecloth around my leg until the muscles were soft, and then a lot of cocoa butter to massage it. Sister felt that if a muscle was in spasm and you immobilized it, if it ever wanted to come out of spasm, it had no place to go. And her idea was you had to just keep the muscles long and keep them soft. Now, this was surely not a cure, but it was really quite a treatment, and it was all over our hemisphere at that time. I meet people from Canada all the time who tell me that they had the Sister Kenny treatment as well. So there I was, this child, not being able to play with other children and sitting with adults all the time. And I learned adult conversation. I learned to listen carefully, and I learned that if I wanted to participate in any way, I would have to say something that was cogent, that had some meaning to it. So I became very astute at that kind of hearing and that kind of engagement. I also knew that I was so unlike the other children that I would need to sort of figure out who I was in all of this. And there was a book that helped me. And I'm sure some of you will see that and know it so well from your childhood as well, Madeline. And the thing that resonated about this book, and of course my mother had to take it out of the library so often that she finally had to buy a copy, and this is an old original. It was that Madeline was different than all the other children in this school. There were 12 of them, and 11 were in two straight lines, rain or shine, but there was this Madeline who was just not in sync. And when they went to the zoo and all the children were afraid of the lions and the tigers, Madeline would walk right up to the cage and go poo-poo. Nothing bothered her. And that's how it felt for me. Nothing bothered me. I also saw that she went to the hospital to have an operation. Well, I had been to the hospital by that time when I was going to be 6, and I knew what she was talking about. She had a scar on her belly. I had one on my leg. And so I really understood Madeline. So let me get back to this age of 6. So I hear from my parents that I'm going to the hospital. Now, remember, I had been sitting with adults all my life. And in 1949, you went to the hospital not to get better, but you went to die. So I thought they were taking me to die. But at 6, you can have no grief for a life not lived. And so I had no idea what this all meant, except that I gave my brother all my toys. And I said goodbye to the neighbors, you know, with a finality that they would not understand. And when I went to the hospital, it was all very interesting to me, a gurney and being strapped to the table and looking out the window. And it was quite interesting. And then when I woke up, I thought they made a mistake. But in that nanosecond of consciousness, I realized that I had another chance. And so in my life, everybody has always gotten a second chance. There was also this feeling of how much kinder I was than others. I knew that I would never do to other kids what they were doing to me at that time. And if I had only been able to tell my 6-year-old self what my life could become, that would have made a difference. So I decided to write myself a letter to my 6-year-old self that I'm going to share with you today, which will tell you about my life. My dear Ina, you're going to begin your life in the hardest way you can imagine. Polio at 18 months, which will lead to a childhood being marginalized, ignored, ostracized, and bullied. You will learn your first lesson when you understand that you are kinder than those around you. Your father will be the one who instills in you that you only have to get up one more time than you fall. And he will always be there to part another sea, a red sea of impossibility. You will marry Bill Pinkney, who will sail around the world solo. And when you understand his best life will be spent on the sea and yours on land, divorce him 36 years later. You will each leave the marriage better people than when you began it. And neither of you will ever forget why you loved each other. Your life experiences will read like a novel and seem a dream to many. You will hang out with Maya Angelou in Greenwich Village. You will dance with Fred Astaire. You'll go skydiving, class 10 whitewater rafting, and scuba diving. You will ski the Alps and the Rockies on your one good leg. You'll feed Julia Child, Wolfgang Puck, and many celebrities and politicians, as well as Chicago chefs who will grow before your eyes and make our city a world-class food destination. You'll experience great kindness from Anthony Bourdain, wipe the brow of Mikhail Baryshnikov in The Wings of the Ballet, appear on a global live stream on World Polio Day to speak about the Global Polio Eradication Initiative for Rotary and the Gates Foundation. And by the way, Bill Gates will follow you on Twitter. You will try hard to find your place in corporate America, having 21 jobs and getting fired from 19 of them, but learning something from each one that you will need and use later. You will be fearless, Ina, but never reckless. And always see yourself as the causative agent in your story, never the victim. You'll bake your first cake at age 37 and find a strange and exciting joy in that. From that one cake, you will build a baking kitchen, teach yourself how to bake, and create a dessert catering business in 1980 when that does not exist. You will open your restaurant in 1991 at the age of 48 and realize there is great power in being underestimated. Ina's Kitchen will change the landscape of breakfast forever in Chicago, and it will matter. You will ultimately be known as an entrepreneur way ahead of her time, who created the smoking ban in Chicago, co-founded the Green Restaurant Coalition, and found a recipe for success in compassion, exacting standards, and sheer willpower. Ina's Kitchen will become a theater piece and a stage upon which the Ina will be reborn. Every life-changing experience you will have, every person you will meet, the family of choice you will assemble will enter through that door. You will try with all your might to fit in, and like most polio survivors, pass for normal for many years until the late effects of polio take their toll. First with a brace, then a cane, then a walker, then a scooter, and then a wheelchair at home. After a 33-year career that will bring you much joy and heartache, you will find your exit strategy and pivot to new and exciting ways to use your knowledge and experience. You will write a memoir cookbook called called Ina's Kitchen. You will be the subject of an award-winning documentary called Breakfast at Ina's. You will write a monthly column in the Chicago Tribune called Breakfast with Ina. Companies will hire you to speak at conferences about breakfast. You will finally get to eat breakfast. What you will love the most are the relationships that will sustain you, especially with the Rotarians you will meet each time you are invited to speak. You will treat each meeting as an honor, and you will accept it because you will feel the grace of all you have tried to accomplish, and you are no longer 6 and afraid that you will never belong. So had I gotten that letter, I might not have believed it all, but I certainly would have had a roadmap to help me get through the life that I couldn't even imagine as a polio child. My time with Rotary is probably the most rewarding of anything I have done. And it's because I understand that you all have donor fatigue from having raised money for decades. And so my job, as I see it, my honor as I see it, is to tell you the story about post-polio and how it changed my life and how it made my world very, very small. I started out with a small life, and then I got big, and now it's back to being very small. And so when you know about post-polio, and you know that every child who gets polio now still will struggle in 40 to 50 years after the onset of that, as all of the survivors are now feeling, it's even more encouraging to keep going and going and going. And to think that in my lifetime, that we can get to zero will be one of the cherished days of my life. So thank you for having me come all the way to Utah from my 22nd floor apartment in Chicago. And thank you, Devin, for your kind words and for arranging this and for giving me an opportunity to tell you who I am and what happened to me and why it's so essential that we keep going. Thank you. Thank you, Linda.
Ina, it's such a privilege for us to have you. Thank you very much for coming all the way from Chicago to participate today.
Yeah.
We are thrilled to have you. If you have time for a few questions, I'm going to give Governor Sappington the opportunity to ask the first question, and I'll invite the audience, if they would, to put their questions to you in the chat or in the Q&A tool, and we will field those questions, okay? As long as you've got a few minutes. So, Linda, go ahead. What's your question?
Well, I loved your letter, Ina. Really and truly, you danced with Fred Astaire. You were fired 19 times. And you baked your first cake at age 37?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I tell the truth from my heart. It's the only way that it can be authentic and hear people receive it, you know, in their heart. The answer, yes, I was at a big event where they were honoring Fred Astaire, and Count Basie's band was playing. And all of a sudden I noticed he was standing alone, and there was a big circle around him. And remember what I said, I was fearless? I walked right up to him, and he said, "Oh, I see that you have a little trouble walking. Perhaps we could just sway." And he took me in his arms, and we swayed to the music about 10 or 12 times. And I thought, okay, I could die now. This is it. I could die now. I'm fine. And then I said, thank you so much. Just an honor. And I turned and walked away, and everybody's eyes were kind of like that, but I got to do it.
Can I ask one more question, if you don't
mind?
Oh, yeah. How does post-polio manifest itself? I mean, so, you're going along between 1 year and 45 or whatever, and suddenly you...
All of a sudden you have a kind of a mind-numbing exhaustion. All of my muscles were getting weaker. I was having aches and pains, and the doctor said, you know what you have you're aging, it's just aging. And I went, no, this is different. Every doctor who is smart will tell you, listen to a polio. They know their bodies better than anybody. And so when he said that to me, I realized, well, he's probably 10 years younger than I am. He knows nothing. And then I had heard that there was a meeting of Polio International down in St. Louis. And I drove down there just to hear what was going on, because we were kind of forgotten. Once the March of Dimes dropped us and went off to birth defects, March of Dimes in Canada kept going with polio, but there was nothing happening that I could understand about any research into anything about polio. The late effects of polio is what they were calling it. And I walked into the hotel ballroom in St. Louis, and there were 300 people there with the same complaints that I was having. And I thought, okay, something is going on here. And then finally there was work done. A lot of it gets tagged onto MS because there's similarities in terms of the sheaths of the nerves that are destroyed. But what we didn't know is that polio affected everything in the spinal column. Maybe my paralysis was on the right side, but it touched everything. So some of us, I go through it too, sometimes have swallowing problems, which don't make any sense to us. And then it disappears for a while. The weakness now is in my good leg. My left leg, which I skied on, is now sometimes too weak for me to get up on a curb. And so that's when I started using the cane. And then I went to the walker, and then now I use a wheelchair in the house to save my energy, because conserve to preserve is everything that we need to know. I mean, if I could take back all of my jazzercise exercises in the 80s and my hot pink leotards and purple leg warmers, I would take it back, because what I did was wear out the nerves much faster. So post-polio sort of comes on gradually. Sometimes it hits you hard. Sometimes it sort of disappears for a little bit, or you can manage it. And then there's no way out. There's no way out.
Thank you for that.
My pleasure.
So Ina, thank you. Clark Merkley sent you a little love note. He said, Ina, thank you so much for your life of inspiration. As a former resident of the Windy City, I wish I had come to your breakfast mansion.
Thank you, Clark. Well, the movie is on Amazon Prime now, and it's called Breakfast at Ina's, and we've won all kinds of awards. And it's a good 50 minutes, sit down with some popcorn, and then beat yourself up that you never ate my food. And at one point, you see me having lunch with the Rotary, with Carol Pandick, and a few other people from Rotary International came to have lunch. So you'll see me having lunch with them.
Oh, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Ina, past District Governor Bev Christie asks, when did you join Rotary?
I think it was about 6 or 7 years ago when I finally had time after I closed my restaurant, but I was always asked to speak, so I was always a speaker. But then I joined, Rotary One invited me to join, and so that's when I joined.
Tell us a little bit about Rotary One. That's kind of got to be a little bit exciting. It probably feels ordinary to you, but tell us what it's like to be a part of Rotary Club One.
Well, there's a certain gravitas when you walk into that room and you realize that this is where it began. It even has more sensibility to me than going to the international headquarters in Evanston, which is, a new and shiny kind of building. But going into the Union League Club where they hold the Rotary One meetings, you just sort of have to take a deep breath and say, boy, I'm walking in the footsteps of some people who really had vision and really decided that, the four questions were the right questions.
Those 4 questions are profound. Let me reiterate to everyone that if you have a question for Ina, you're welcome to ask it either in the chat tool or in the Q&A tool. You
can always email me at thebreakfastqueen@gmail.com.
Yes. After you got, so what's that? What's your email again, Ina? Tell everybody.
The Breakfast Queen, one word, @gmail.com.
thebreakfastqueen@gmail.com. Fantastic. Well, everybody make a note of that so you can follow up with her. But Ina, I would love to know more about your experience growing up as a child. As you reflect on it now, obviously you have concluded, and we see the strength that you got from that. But tell us a little bit about the challenges of growing up, if you felt that there were any.
There were constant challenges because I was always left out. But I figured out pretty early that I had the power of persuasion, and if I said to the kids, "Why don't we meet at the playground after lunch?" I could start early and I could be there when they got there. And so while I couldn't participate in all the games, I could be what they call the steady ender on the jump rope. I would always be the one turning the rope, but at least I was a participant. Of course, when it was over, they all dispersed, and then it took me a while and a loan to get home. But at least I figured out how to be part of something in the way I wanted to be part. There was also a love-hate relationship with school in terms of walking up 3 flights of stairs to the room, because this was an old school building in Brooklyn. And so I was allowed to go up early because I couldn't get jostled too much because I didn't have very good balance. And so the kids hated that I got to go up early. And I needed it, but I didn't have to like it so much either. And then, of course, I didn't have to leave the room in fire drills. They all had to go out, walk down the steps and go outside, but I didn't have to do that. So I had a love-hate relationship with what I needed and what I got, and the difficulty I had with the kids after. In the classroom, I was honored because I was smart, but in the playground, I was prey. I was always prey. They always took my books. It was hard. Kids are impossibly unkind. But I figured out how to maneuver my way through a lot of that.
I wish it were different today. I suspect kids are still struggling with that
Yes,
pattern. Thank you
they
for
are.
sharing some of that. I know those may be hard memories. But
No,
another comment from Suzanne is, she says, "How do we get this amazing lady to St. George? Simply beautiful."
to
So
go
Ina,
where?
are you available to Zoom anywhere?
Anywhere. I was supposed to do a big district up in Washington State in May, and naturally it got shut down, and they did not reposition it. So, and they didn't virtual it. So anywhere, anytime. I have $6 worth of high definition makeup on. I'll do it any day.
That's great. And past District Governor Bev Christie says again, "Ina, your courage and compassion are an inspiration. Thank you for sharing your story." And Brenton Webb says, "Could you speak to your entrepreneurial experience? Was it after your divorce? How did you work out funding? How did you market your kitchen?"
Oh, those are some good questions. So the answer is, I decided one day that I was going to start a surprise birthday cake delivery service, because I looked at an ad for balloons and I thought, boy, people send you balloons for your birthday. They send you strippers for your birthday, and they send you, I forgot what else, singing telegrams. And nobody sends you the most obvious, a cake. And so I was talking to some neighbors in our building on the roof deck, and I said, what would you think about this service? And they all went, oh my God, that's really great. And I went down to my apartments and I wrote down all the things I thought I needed to do to make that happen. And a phone rang. "Hi, Ina, my name is Diane. I live in the building. I heard what you said upstairs. I got your number from the doorman. I'd like to hire your service for Friday." And every entrepreneur will tell you the first thing you say is yes, and then you figure it out. And so I tried to make a cake, which I had never separated eggs. I had never beaten egg whites. I had never melted chocolate before. And I knew this was the cake that I saw on the paper that I wanted to make. And I gave myself 4 tries. I went out and bought more ingredients, 4 tries. And then the 4th one was good. And I was starting the last of my jobs the next morning, on that Monday morning. And on Friday, my husband took the cake downtown and did the delivery, and everybody loved it. And the woman called me and I said, Diane, you know, you were the first. Tell me everything good, everything bad. She thought it was one of the best things that had happened. We did a parchment scroll with calligraphy, a sparkler on the cake. It was really cool. And then all of a sudden the word spread like wildfire until one day a man called and said, can I just buy the cake? Ah, yes, you can. And so all of a sudden I was making this cake. And I had all these out of work actors coming to my office to take the cakes away for delivery. And yeah, I got fired from that job too. And then all of a sudden I had a business, and a man called and said, what else do you do? And I said, what else do you want? And all of a sudden I was baking, and I had no idea what I was doing. I just sort of did it. And then eating breakfast out while I had the bakery. And in the 80s, breakfast was horrible. You know, it was, coffee was insipid and food was, you know, greasy and terrible. And I said to my husband, why can't anybody make a decent breakfast? And he said, so let me see, every day you go and you play with butter, flour, sugar, and eggs. What are we eating? And I went, oh. And I said, I'm going to open a breakfast restaurant that nobody has ever seen before. And it was fine dining and white tablecloths, no loud music. Everything was beautiful and perfect, and the coffee was fabulous. So there you go. That's how I started it. That was my entrepreneurial spirit. Now, I come from a line of entrepreneurs. My dad was one. My grandpa came over from Russia, and he opened a butcher shop in Philadelphia, and a very early adopter of technology. He was the first one in Philadelphia to have water-cooled coils in the meat locker. And my grandma came over later with my dad, so I'm first generation. So there's a little bit of entrepreneurial spirit in the family, but I always knew I could do it better. That's why I could always get fired, because I could do it better.
That's great, Ina. Ina, let's see. Interesting question here from Sharon Richardson. She says, Ina, I had a brother who contracted polio in 1953.
Yeah.
My mother always thought that he contracted it from a swimming pool. Can you share where they believe you may have contracted the illness?
No, and you know, very much like the pandemic now, there were lockdowns. People didn't go to movie theaters and didn't go. I mean, it actually comes out through the feces. And if people didn't wash their hands carefully and touched somebody else, and just like now, don't touch your face, it had nothing to do with being in the swimming pool at all. And it had nothing to do with, it wasn't airborne. You know, it wasn't airborne at all, but people didn't know. And so they were terrified of that. And so my mother, as you'll see in the movie, and the movie is really quite something because I go into polio a lot in the movie. My mother really suffered and struggled her whole life. Where did she take me? The other mothers didn't take their kids, that I was the only child in a building teeming with children that got polio. So you have no idea. Could have been somebody touched my hand somewhere, and that was it. So you have no idea. And I did have a brother. I see somebody put up, was I an only child? I had a brother 2 years younger. Mm-hmm.
Did you publish a cookbook?
I have a cookbook. It's called Ina's Kitchen. It's over here somewhere. And it's a memoir cookbook. All the recipes from my restaurant are in there. It's got great photographs and delicious photographs. And just little stories, little vignettes about my life in there. It's very moving, very moving. The movie for me is sort of the ultimate. You know, we all get up every day and we live our lives. You know, you went out and did a little political thing and you got in your car and you drove to you know, we all know how to do it. We have a life that we live. Having it documented is profound. And they documented my life in a way that is so honoring and extraordinary. I mean, you see me putting on my leg brace, you see me going to work, you see me doing what I do every day. It was quite something. So Ina's Kitchen is the book, and Breakfast at Ina's is the movie.
That's great. Golly. So appropriate. Now, Tim Nicolason says, what superhuman activities do you have planned for the future, Ina? Your youthful spirit says there is a lot of life still in you.
Okay, then let me think about this. That's a good one. Well, I just had a special lift put in my car so that my fold-up scooter, which is the coolest thing because it's all remote, I now feel free. That's been a big thing. All my life I've tried to be free, and 2 years ago I fell and broke my polio leg, and so it's finally healing up enough. And so now that I have this lift in my car, there's no telling where you can find me. Might have to implant a GPS tracker. You never know.
Oh, that's great.
Dan wants you to come to St. George. So there's a simple solution there.
There you
Yeah.
go. Well, as a matter of fact, my great nephew plays for Real Salt Lake. He plays for the Monarchs, actually. The Monarchs. Mhm.
That's
So I
great.
may be out there. We don't know.
I hope you will. Barbara Zamonia says, I love this woman. She is an opportunity woman who grabs at what comes her way and makes it successful.
This is very true about me. Thank you for noticing that. Yes. You know, I think it's a New York thing also. You know, when I came to the Midwest, I realized that people sort of only see what was in front of you. You know, if you couldn't get what you needed here, people in the Midwest seem to walk away. New Yorkers have this other thing that, okay, I can't get that, but what else is available to me here? How can I do this? You know, and it's just a different mindset about maximizing, you know, the circle around you.
Oh, that's amazing. Jose Velasco, our district governor nominee, says,
Oh,
Ina, thank you so much for sharing your story of courage and your entrepreneurial spirit. I look forward to the next time we can hear more of you.
thank you very much. Watch the movie.
It is amazing, Ina, all that you've done. We thank you so much for taking the time to be with us tonight. It really is a privilege for us to have had you. We're honored by your presence and grateful for you sharing your experiences.
Well, as much as you say to me, Devin, you know, my thanks to every one of you for End Polio Now and Polio Plus. It's hard to explain what this all means to me, to know it will be over. Thank you.
All righty. Well, with that, we'll wrap up, but we will, I'll be sure to send you a link to the video when we post it on YouTube, and I'll send that out to everyone in the district and make sure that those who missed tonight, we had great attendance, but those who missed tonight, will make sure that they get an opportunity to see the recording.
Thank you. That would be wonderful.
Ina, again, thank you. Thanks to everyone who participated.
Mhm.
As we wrap up, I'm going to let everyone that was here join the discussion as we wrap up. So you can leave if you want, but if you want to have a little one-on-one with Ina, if you have a few minutes, you can say hi to people as they leave. Is that all right?
Perfect.
So we'll just bring everybody in, and so unmute yourselves and say hi if you'd like. Don't be shy.
They'll write to me.
You
People will write.
want to say hi?
Hi, Ida.
Who's that?
I'm gonna unvideo myself. This is Sean
Hi.
Mitchell from Salt Lake City, Utah. Thank you for your feedback.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Nice to hear from you.
It's a pleasure to be there tonight. You know, I'm easy. I will go anywhere, especially now on Zoom. But I expect to be out there to see my great nephew play ball soon, soccer. Mhm.
That'd be fun. We'd love to have you out. If you come, be sure to let me know, Ina, and we'll arrange.
Don't you worry. I promise. I promise.
Hi, Ina. This is Suzanne Leonelli down in St. George, Utah. And Devin, I will arm wrestle you. I'll get Ina first.
Okay.
St. George is her first visit to Utah.
It will be my first. Yes, I've not been there. Well, I did the Yampa River. I did the Yampa, so I did get into Utah a little bit, but not in the town.
Well, come visit us.
Devin, I'm afraid you'd lose.
I know.
My money's on her.
Yeah. Mine too.
How hot was it in St. George today?
Tell me about St. George.
It's crazy hot. We're in triple digits. It's just ludicrous.
Yeah.
And we had some heavy rains on, what was it, Linda? Monday? We had the heavy rains
Sunday
and
night.
some flooding, and it's just
it
been
was
crazy.
epic.
Yeah, it was.
But they announced another sinkhole today over by the Ramada. Did you know that?
No, I didn't hear about
A
that one.
second one. Yeah, it's not nearly as big as the first one, but boy, it's kind of scary that we're still getting them 3 days after.
Very scary.
Yeah.
I know it is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. I mean, people come from all over the world to visit St. George and Science National Park, and just gorgeous, gorgeous.
All right. Count me in.
And Ina, this is from the Moab Rotary Club, I think. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to thank you for letting us into your life. And I thought that letter to your 6-year-old self was amazing. I think it's something we could all do and benefit from.
Right. It makes you go back and think about all the things you've done and accomplished, and it really does put it in perspective. I mean, I couldn't have dreamed up that life that I've had, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. Well done. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that compliment. Thank you.
And by the way, Moab can compete with St. George anytime.
The rivalry is exquisite.
You haven't left until you come to Kanab.
Where are you?
I have a Utah tour scheduled for you, Ina.
That'd be all right. That'd be all right. I can handle that.
You know, Ina, there's a lot of people that will be very interested in host you right here in Utah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I have had the most extraordinary times when I have been with Rotarians wherever I go, and I used to go and speak. So this is a new way of meeting people, which is just divine. It's divine. Look how many of you I get to talk to right now. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank
I'm going
you.
to sign out, and I wish you good luck and a great life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Sweet dreams tonight, everybody.
Bye, Ina. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Madam Governor. My pleasure. Hi, who is that? Dave?
Yeah, I just thank you for everything. This is a very inspirational, very, very cool. I'm looking forward to getting it out to the rest of our club.
Thank you very much. That's very kind. Okay, anytime. I'll tune in anytime. Devin? Did Devin leave us? No, there he is.
Nope, I'm still here.
All right. All right. I think we need to go home and go to sleep.
Okay, you go to bed. I know it's getting late there.
You know, it gets dark early now, 7:30. I hate that.
It does. Yeah, yeah. It's not summer anymore. But it's the end of summer.
Yeah.
So thank you, Ina. You have a great evening. We really love you and appreciate you. Take care, okay?
Thank you, Ina.
Thank you so much. Thank
Thanks
you
so
all.
much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.